Alrighty, welcome everyone to the Virtual College Exploration Program in partnership with Colleges That Change Lives. This is the Colleges That Change Lives and Liberal Arts session, hosted by Christine and Christopher. Before I pass it over to them, I'm going to kick us off with some housekeeping items. First and foremost, we do have more CTCL sessions through Tuesday evening, so if you're interested in continuing to connect with other colleges and universities across the nation, please check back on our website for that. And when you do register for these sessions, a barcode is sent in that confirmation email, but know that that barcode is not necessary for any of the virtual events that you participate in. All of these sessions are being recorded and posted to our website shortly after the session concludes. So whether you want to rewatch one you participated live in or watch one you may have missed, just check back on our website for those updated recordings. And then finally, you will see and hear the presenters. Unfortunately, they cannot see or hear you all. This is webinar style format. So any questions you have throughout the presentation, feel free to use that Q&A box to type those questions in, and they will do their best to address those throughout the entire session. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Christine to get us started. Thanks so much.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us on a Sunday afternoon. My name is Christine Bowman, and we're going to get back to the beginning here. And this is an opportunity for you to learn not only about the liberal arts and what role it might play in your college search, but also about the organization Colleges That Change Lives and how we as a group come together to help shape, influence, and inspire your college search. So for the next 30 to 40 minutes or so, we'll have a conversation. My partner, Chris Wild from Goucher College, is here with us today. I'm excited and appreciative of his time. He is going to be managing our Q&A. Throughout the session, I encourage you to send questions his way. Please know that if it's a specific question that he may answer you on the spot. If it's something that he feels the entire group may benefit from, he may save it for the end Q&A session that we will all have together. And without further ado, let's get started. So just to share a little bit about who I am, my name is Christine Bowman. I currently serve as the chair of the board of directors of Colleges That Change Lives, which Chris and I both serve on. I am one of the college representatives, and in my real world job, I serve as the Dean of Admission and Enrollment Services at Southwestern University. My college search, while a number of years ago, I applied to 4 very different colleges, a medium-sized private, a mid-sized public, a small liberal arts college, and a large research institution. I did not really have a great plan for my college search, which is ironic since that's what I work on day in and day out with students and families now. But what I did discover is that for a lot of my institutions, I had visited them and was able to be a residential student during various summer camps that I had attended. And my alma mater, Southwestern University, is one that I lived and worked on for a week during summer camp, and it gave me a great opportunity to really see what life on that campus was like. And ultimately, I chose to attend Southwestern because it allowed me the opportunity to explore my academic interest, which was political science, and be close to Austin, Texas, the state capital, where I knew I would be able to intern during their legislative session that was held twice during my college career. But also it allowed me to explore subjects and items that were very different. And I think it was that liberal arts foundation that led me to have this passion in working with students and families to make sure they understand what the liberal arts is all about. So one of the things that is really unique, especially if you're in the class of 2021 or the parent of a 2021 class member, is what impact COVID-19 will have on your college search. And some of these we want to address to provide you comfort along the way. It's going to be different for you, but it's also going to be different for us on the college side. And so we don't want you to stress or worry about this as you go through your year. Does it mean that you potentially need to collaborate with your colleges a little differently? Absolutely. But does it mean that we're ready for it? That's a resounding absolutely as well. So let's start off with number 1. We know that your transcript is going to look a little different from the spring and even potentially from this fall because of the learning style that your school may have implemented. And one of the challenges for the colleges is that we recognize every school district chose to implement in very different fashions. I highly recommend that you make sure your high school transcript includes a profile so that we know what policies your school implemented along the way. The second one, and this is a huge one, is that your ability to take, maybe for the first time, or retake the SAT or the ACT is not looking really good right now. If you have been engaged in this process, you may have unfortunately been in a situation where you're testing for August or June or July or May or April was canceled, or you may have been offered a testing center several hundred miles away. I think the thing that I am most proud of in our profession, which isn't very good at making change sometimes, is that we recognize this year that testing is a very complex and unfortunate situation. And while many institutions have used testing in their college evaluation process, it is becoming less and less likely that that tool is going to be available to us. This year, at the current moment, 42 CTCL institutions have gone test optional. 2 of them are test blind, which pretty much means don't send them, we're never even going to look at them. And at the same time, hundreds of institutions have gone institutionally test optional or temporarily test optional for the class of 2021, and we'll see what they choose to do moving forward from here. I think one of the things that Chris and I want to emphasize to you today, that no matter what institutions you are looking at, your health and the health of your family is not worth taking the SAT over. So I strongly encourage you, as you're going on your journey this year, to look for those test optional policies and to find what alternatives you might be able to do. As an example, at my institution, Southwestern University, we look to engage in an interview with you and are excited about those potential conversations. I think one of the best impacts of the pandemic is that it has caused institutions to flip on their sides and create virtual content for you. You can college search without ever leaving a computer. And while we're starting to grow a little weary of Zoom meetings and virtual, it is really great to expand your opportunities. Some of the schools that you may be able to engage with this week during the CTCL offerings, you might have never heard from before, but you can take a virtual tour of Goucher. You might be able to engage with a presentation with Evergreen. You might be able to sit on a virtual class at Hillsdale. So take advantage of these institutional offerings online before you ever have the opportunity to visit on campus. I should note that there are some institutions that have reopened for on-campus visits, and you will find that information on websites as well. One of the things that college applications provide for us is the opportunity for us to get to know you better, obviously, but also to see how you have adapted in times of great challenge. And the COVID-19 pandemic certainly has presented this. And so you'll have the opportunity on your application, through an interview, through your essay, in whichever means you would like, to potentially address your COVID time away. If you don't wish to talk about it, that's fantastic. You don't have to. But if you have really taken advantage of the last 5 months to learn to play the guitar, because normally you wouldn't have time to do it because you were always at practice, or maybe you've read 75 books, maybe you've watched every Best Picture Academy Award winner, and you have fallen in love with movies all over again. We're looking forward to hearing what you've done with this time and how you've dealt with transition, whether positively or negatively. And as I said before, and I'll reiterate throughout this process, we're all in this together. Colleges and admission reps understand that this has been a really unusual year, and we'll be looking for and looking at your application in that context. All right. And so as you begin your college search, you may be thinking, I should be looking at guides and rankings. I only should be looking at schools within this specific football conference, or because they're the name that everybody at my high school goes to. It is important to know that you're going to get a return on your investment, and your family will probably want that as well. You may be thinking as you learn about these institutions, oh my gosh, these schools are smaller than my high school. Why would I ever want to consider these institutions? You may have a passion about science or business, and you think there's no way I can study those at a liberal arts college. Or that you may believe that the political leanings of liberal arts colleges are not well matched for you. And finally, you may say that no one from your school, no one from your community, and especially not your parents, have ever heard of these institutions. So why would you ever want to consider these schools? Throughout our conversation today, we hope to demystify some of these myths a little bit and not only expose you to the liberal arts in general and the value that these types of institutions bring, but also help to introduce you to our institutions that are engaged in colleges that change lives. When it comes to U.S. News and World Report, it is a very famous college guide, and lots of media will cover its new release every year. One of the things we wanted to highlight for you here is how those rankings actually break down and give you a couple of questions to pontificate. Are these important values and weights that your family feels are important as you consider your colleges? Do you have other factors that you believe are more important in considering? So it's important to know that 20% of the U.S. News and World Report rankings are a popularity contest. Other schools vote other institutions to be ranked one versus another. Faculty resources count for another 20%, and then the other largest one is graduation and retention rate. Now, we think that is very important, and so that should have a strong emphasis in an evaluation. But look at things like student excellence and social mobility, what students are doing beyond graduation, and how they're utilizing their degree not only for success. We believe that that is really important. Student excellence, your academic profile, only counts for 10%. I would think that an outstanding school would recognize the students that they are enrolling in a more important way than the popularity contest in voting for other institutions. Now, we all love rankings. We have become a ranking-related society, whether that's what's popular on Amazon, food recommendations on Yelp, movies on Rotten Tomatoes. But I think we all have also become very accustomed when we see rankings to evaluating how they impact you and what you're looking for. Just because a horror movie has a very high rating on Rotten Tomatoes doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to watch it. I'm not a horror fan at all. So when you use these tools, we strongly encourage you to use this amongst many other tools to round out your college search, because they will be most helpful in evaluating what makes your college decision the right one. Another tool that you may have heard of is the Gallup Purdue Index. And one of the reasons why I like this tool is that it ultimately asks the question, is college worth it? What are the tools that make college unique? What are the skills and the engagements that create an original college environment? And in 2015, Gallup interviewed 30,000 college graduates with a bachelor's degree or higher to gather some of this information. They looked at 5 areas of well-being to help measure different aspects of the collegiate experience. The purpose well-being. Did you like what you did every day, and were you motivated to complete your goals at the institution? Did you have strong supportive relationships and love the life that you had at college? Were you effectively managing your economic life to reduce the stress and increase your future security? Was there a sense of engagement that you have with the areas where you lived, liked where you lived, felt safe, and engaged with that community beyond just the college? And finally, did you have a strong physical well-being, healthy mind, healthy body? We want to make sure that college was one that wasn't a marathon to be sprinted, but a journey to be traveled in a healthy mindset. And here's what the Gallup Purdue Index shared with us. that the type of school an alumnus went to, public or private, small or large, very selective or less selective, was far less likely to be related to the quality of alumni lives after they graduated than the experiences you have in college. And so this is really important, especially when you tie this back to our organization, Colleges That Change Lives. Wherever you go, big, small, public, private, well-known or lesser-known names, it is what you do and the opportunities that you take advantage of that will help determine how your life is changed while you are in college. Now, some of the things that the Gallup Purdue Index highlighted are very connected to the liberal arts experience that all of our particular institutions highlight. As an example, were you developing relationships with your faculty? Did you have a mentor? Did your advisor provide guidance? These relationships, as you can see, pop into these a couple of different times as far as how much someone engaged in their learning and engaged in their college experience. Were you able to be engaged outside of the classroom, whether that's extracurricular activities? Did you hold leadership? Were you able to complete unique projects? And you see that at liberal arts institutions, those are higher, and that education values those as well. So these sorts of tools are well known for at liberal arts and sciences institutions, especially CTCL schools. And so while we look at institutions to try and benchmark against, there is one more tool that you might want to consider, and that is the National Survey of Student Engagement, or NSSE. NSSE provides an annual report in which it collects information at hundreds of colleges across the country from first-year students and seniors to evaluate the difference in their experiences between the freshman year and the senior year. How did you grow during this time? How did you obtain satisfaction through your college experience? And those provide the colleges information about what they're doing really well, their best practices are, especially in undergraduate education, and where are areas that they can grow. And so some of the good practices that NSSE highlights are engagement indicators, which you see on the left-hand side of the screen, as well as high impact practices, which you see on the right-hand side of the screen. It is imperative that these two go together. You're combining the in-class experience with the out-of-class experience to really format your future and your education. And while some institutions will highlight research with faculty over their service learning, lots of institutions will combine all of these opportunities for students to engage with along the way. And so we hope that if these are things that are important for you, that you will inquire about them as you're speaking to college reps at CTCL schools, but also at any school across the country. As a highlight, outcomes are incredibly important. We mentioned in the very beginning, I want to get the return on investment, and this college might be expensive, and so am I going to get my money's worth? A sample of the CTCL outcomes that you'll find is that in 2019, we had 42 Fulbright scholars, 26 member institutions were cited as top producers of the Fulbright. We had 6 Watson Fellowships in 2018, 32 Gilman scholars between 18 and 19, and we have 3 top producers of Peace Corps volunteers amongst our 44 members. So this is really important to see that not only are we preparing you for your college experience and giving you a great experience while you're here, but what do you do with all of these opportunities? The Fulbright, as you may or may not know, gives you an opportunity to research and study and teach in 140 countries to graduates and graduate students. The Watson is a 1-year grant for independent and purposeful exploration outside of the United States. And the Gilman enables students of limited financial means to study or intern abroad, therefore gaining some of these critical skills to our national security and economic competitiveness. So some really great opportunities there. So why does this matter to you and your family? CTCL institutions are inclusive, and while they may be selective, they are looking for diverse populations across their pools. The average admission rate to these institutions is 65%. So you could earn access to a well-structured, incredibly engaging institution and graduate within 4 years. Many of our institutions have very high graduation rates. And then finally, these are institutions that are looking to engage students in residential, 4-year residential experiences and really create magic in the learning environment. While our organization talks about how colleges will change your lives, it is a partnership. You can't just magically sit in that seat and expect magic to fall on you and you're going to be a completely different person. But because of the style and structure of our institutions, we know that you're going to be a different person by the time you graduate. So here I'm going to list a variety of questions that you might want to ask and have in your arsenal when you're engaging in some of these virtual college fairs, or if you have the chance to visit. If these things are important for you, we highly encourage you to add these to your standard list of questions, because you are not just a standard person. So what are the things that are important to you? What are you looking for in your college search? And how do you need to make sure that this college is going to support you in your activities and help you succeed in what you want to do? All right, so let's talk a little bit about liberal arts in specific. Why should you select a liberal arts college? In the media, they often receive negative press. And I can tell you on our website, there is a whole host of media-related articles that talk about the benefits of a liberal arts experience and a liberal arts education. And so one of the things that I think is most important are the skill sets that you see listed here. I have sat with many hiring managers, and when they talk about what they are looking for, they don't want someone who just knows the job. They can teach you how to do any job. What they're looking for is the individual who's going to bring these types of skills to that hiring manager, because that's the person that's going to be a problem solver. That's the person that's going to move up the ladder and become a manager. Or maybe they're going to be a technical writer because they have developed really critical thinking skills and data analysis along the way, and that's what this particular hiring manager is looking for. These are things that are easily developed in a smaller education environment where you're working with faculty, you're working with smaller groups, you're able to engage in your classrooms on a regular basis. It's not unusual for students to sometimes be given topics for which they have to become an expert and stand in front of the classroom and teach at our institutions. And these are things that are going to give you the confidence to be able to give presentations, to stand in front of those boards, and to deliver information confidently and eloquently. These are not only skills that are important for you, but as I mentioned earlier, these are important skills that employers are endorsing as critical in their hiring process. And we have a little bit of data to support this. Employers say that emphasis should be placed on these skills once again. And you'll see here from the American Association of Colleges and Universities, when employers were solicited by them, how much these skills are agreed to or strongly agreed to as important tasks coming out of the college environment. They want you to have not only knowledge, but they want you to have communication skills, creativity, the ability to work in groups, the ability to lead a project on your own. And these are things that our liberal arts colleges do quite well. One more element from the Committee for Economic Development. How do these competencies come together? The top 5 essential competencies, as I mentioned before: teamwork and collaboration, problem solving, critical thinking, oral communication, and to work with individuals from diverse backgrounds. Many of our institutions are excited about our diverse populations, not only in a geographic sense, students are coming from all over the country to attend our schools, but also students from different socioeconomic backgrounds, students from different racial backgrounds. In Texas, where Southwestern University is located, I can tell you that students that grow up in the Panhandle, the very top of Texas, and grow up in the Valley have had very different life experiences. And students from East Texas and West Texas have had very different life experiences. So while we're all from the same state, different parts of the country, different parts of the world bring different ideas and different mindsets together. And these are critical as you transition into graduate and professional school or into the workforce. We talked earlier about the importance of a return on investment. And this is something that, of course, is important for anyone. College is an expensive investment for you and your family, and you want to know that when you get out, your liberal arts degree is going to have value. I think this last bullet is really important. The 40-year return on investment of liberal arts institutions is close to those of a 4-year engineering and technology-based institution, as well as business and management skills. And so I think what's important here is that while your first job may be a stepping stone, over time, that liberal arts grad walks out with confidence and that they are going to advance in their career because of these skills that we've highlighted on the last 4 or 5 slides. Liberal arts institutions rank 3rd out of all types of colleges for median income 40 years out. And so there is a strong return on investment if you consider a liberal arts institution. All right, let's switch over to some general admission and financial aid advice. From the financial aid perspective, because we know that financing is an important part of this journey, the FAFSA is the most important tool that you can complete. All of our institutions, except for one, require the FAFSA. Some of our institutions will supplement that with the CSS profile or may have an institutional specific form. And if you're one of our international colleagues joining us today, some of our institutions will require an international student financial aid form. The FAFSA and the CSS profile open up October 1st, so be very mindful of getting that completed. And in this time of COVID, I strongly encourage you to reach out to your admission counselor or to your financial aid officer if your family has been impacted by the pandemic from a financial or medical standpoint. The FAFSA collects data from 2 years ago and so won't be able to immediately collect any COVID-related expenses or losses your family may have occurred. So we strongly encourage you to communicate throughout this process with your admission and financial aid officers to make sure that all of your information is being conveyed. I think it's really important to note that while the price tag of some private liberal arts institutions is larger than you might imagine, the financial aid, both what is available through the federal government and through institutions, can really make many of our institutions as affordable as public schools, especially your Research 1 institutions within your state. We encourage you to look at state financial aid and utilize outside scholarships. FastWeb is one resource that is mentioned. Look locally through your counselor, and some great advice: start early and look broadly. You never know when that scholarship may land in your lap. Whoops. There's 2 types of financial aid that you'll generally see. Gift aid is free money, and we all love free money. This is scholarships based on merit or talent, or grants from the state, the federal government, or the institution. You don't have to pay these back. And then there's something that we call self-help. And this is work study, where you're earning money to either save or to apply to a future bill, or you're going to be taking out student loans along the way, borrowed money, and investment in yourself. What's really important to know is that of our organization, there are 44 of us with 44 different policies in regard to our financial aid processes. Ask questions, look for deadlines, and don't fall behind. Financing can be one of the best tools that you can get if you do all the steps that you need to. And make sure you engage your parents in this process. They're going to need to help you. It's important to also know that no matter how smart or how talented you are, only less than 100 schools will meet full need. So if you have no money to contribute to college, there are only 100 schools in the country that have the resources to give you a full ride for college. So we encourage you to look broadly, to go on the journey, and you might be really surprised what type of financial aid different institutions are able to provide for you. We should be honest to let you know that financial aid is often more generous to those students who are academically talented and above average. That colleges do use financial aid to woo students to attend their schools. And different institutional priorities may impact how aid is distributed. If there's a particular college that wants more students from Montana to attend their school, they may have a larger scholarship for students from Montana than students from New Mexico. So you want to ask lots of questions to make sure you are taking full advantage of financial aid. And as I mentioned earlier, the FAFSA that you will complete will be based on your 2019 taxes, but the impact of COVID was in 2020. So be sure to keep in touch with your financial aid officer and your admission counselor. All right, who is CTCL? CTCL is a nonprofit organization dedicated to the advancement and support of student-centered college search. We feel like your college search process should not be based on a label or a name, but should be helping you find the right fit to grow academically, personally, artistically, and athletically, if all of those things are important for you. The book that all of us have been featured in at one point in time is called Colleges That Change Lives. There have been 4 editions of the book, including the first one written by Lauren Pope, the former education editor of the New York Times. And throughout these books, different colleges have been highlighted. While typically we travel across the country 4 times a year together, unfortunately, the pandemic has required us to jump online and engage with you in a unique and different fashion. Our original group of organizations or institutions in the nonprofit was 40, and we now have 44 members of our organization. These books are often found in your library. It is available on Amazon. They give you a great snapshot of the institution, but I want to highlight the last edition was edited in 2012. That is 8 years ago, and that can often be a lifetime in the life of a college. As an example, Southwestern University was profiled as one of the few colleges in the state of Texas that didn't have a football team, and now we do. So what I encourage you to do when you read the book is look for general themes and content, but realize that there may have been some changes along the way over the last 8 years. What we try to do as an organization is push back on the frenzy, the chaos, and the stress in regard to the college admission process. We believe in helping you find the right fit institutions, to look at colleges with a healthy mindset, and to de-stress this process for students and families by being a resource for you, answering questions and providing connections to institutions within our organization that may be the right fit. We believe in the liberal arts and talking about it as a long-term benefit for educational opportunity. And we support the recruitment of our member institutions. And that's what this week is all about, is allowing you to get to know our schools, but also providing you tips and guidance for a successful college search. As I mentioned, there are 44 organizations within our group. 42 of them are private institutions. 2 of them are public institutions. All of them have a liberal arts focus. We represent 25 states, and our average enrollment is 1,500 students. You'll see here all of our members are listed, and 2 colleges with the asterisk, Evergreen State and New College of Florida, are our 2 public institutions. If you have not had a chance, I'll reiterate again, to look at the CTCL offerings during this virtual college week with StriveScan. We encourage you to do so. All of the institutions have either presented yesterday and today, or we will be presenting the rest of the week, and we hope that you will engage with them. I want to highlight a couple of things along the way, just to show the uniqueness of our institutions. Hampshire and Evergreen allow students to mold their education by creating their major. and others have a more structured major-minor focus. Cornell is a one class at a time institution, and while a few of our other institutions have modeled that this year, given the COVID pandemic, Cornell has been proudly taking one class at a time for a long period of time. Hiram College in Hiram, Ohio has a Tech and Trek program, allowing you to look at the technological side of businesses and the non-tech side of our lives. Goucher requires all students to study abroad. We have a women's college in Agnes Scott and an all-men's school in Wabash. We have one Division I institution with the NCAA, and that is St. Mary's in California. Two Division II, Hillsdale in Michigan and Eckerd in Florida. And all of the rest of our institutions are D3 as far as their athletic offerings. So I hope you will engage with these schools. And as our time is nearing the end, I'll provide my contact information to you, as well as ways that you can further engage with CTCL. And Chris, what are some questions that the audience has that I can help answer for everybody?
Absolutely. We have some great questions. So we'll start off with, what defines a liberal arts college?
I think one of the easiest way to define the liberal arts college is the educational curriculum that they offer. While you will most likely have a major and maybe a minor, we talked about a couple of institutions in our organization that allows you to create your own program. You're also going to have a mixture of courses from a variety of disciplines that you may choose from to create your engaged liberal arts curriculum. We don't believe that you should just have one subject and study only that subject for 4 years. We believe in a broad educational offering. But also, most liberal arts colleges engage with those critical thinking skills, communication skills, those personal skills that we talked about advancing in a variety of ways. Those are things that are harder to do at larger research institutions, and sometimes that's where you'll find honors programs come into play. At most true liberal arts colleges, that is the foundation of the educational environment from start to finish, is creating that humanistic element of a learning environment and combining with academic passion and academic knowledge.
We have another question. Why the 44 out of all of the small liberal arts colleges in the country? How were they selected?
So all of the 44 schools that are highlighted in our organization have been featured in one of the 4 issues of Colleges That Change Lives, the book. We know that we are not the only institutions that change lives. We know we are not the only liberal arts colleges around the country, but at this time, the only members of our organization have been featured at one point in time, either through an edition of Lauren Pope's writing or through Hillary Oswald's writing, to highlight these types of institutions.
Another great question. Can you talk a little bit about the science and engineering offerings? Many students believe there aren't science and engineering opportunities at liberal arts schools.
So I want to, before I dig deep into that, I want to highlight our website. You see it listed here, ctcl.org. One of the features that we have added to our website is a search engine that would allow you to go in and type your academic area of interest. And if one of our 44 colleges offers that academic interest, you can go out and see who those are. And you will be surprised that things like business and science and engineering are available. They're just done in the complement of a liberal arts environment. So you can study engineering, you can study biology and pre-med, you can study business within the context of a liberal arts. We're just going to complement that along the way with courses outside of those disciplines as well. Now, some of our schools may have a full engineering program on their campus, and others may participate in a dual degree or 3-2 engineering program in which they partner with other schools. And what that allows you to do is earn a Bachelor of Arts from your home institution, a Bachelor of Science from your secondary institution, and you walk out with 2 bachelor's degrees in the course of 5 years. But really what it does for that engineer is allows them to develop those critical thinking skills, the writing skills, the communication skills that make them much more successful in the competitive market of engineering because they've thought outside of just the science box. It's what makes our students prepared well for medical school and for graduate and professional school as well.
Another good question. Can you explain more about the CTCL Scholarship?
That is a great question, and thank you for whoever submitted that. Through generous donations from educators, colleges, and universities across the country, CTCL has been able to offer 2 scholarships, 2 four-year awards every year for the past 4 years. Our first set of graduates just came along, so I guess really 5 years. These are valued at $1,000 per year, so a student will get $4,000 over the course of their high school career. They are open to any student, and the only caveat is that they enroll at a CTCL school when they graduate. So this is a great way for you to have one of those outside scholarships that we talked about a little earlier in the financial aid section, if you feel like a CTCL school might be a good match for you. I should be honest to let you know it has been a very competitive scholarship in the last couple of years, and so the scholarship committee has implemented that you send in a copy of your SAR, your student aid report from the FAFSA, and this has allowed us to make sure that those dollars, as far as the scholarship, not only go to a bright, outstanding, academically gifted student that is going to attend a CTCL school, but goes to a student that has financial need and hopefully makes attending a CTCL school a reality.
And the last question, it seems right now, what tips do you have for the class of 2024, 23, 22, and 21, so the next 4 graduating classes, about college admissions that are unique to the pandemic? What do you think the college admissions process will look like in the future for our first year and sophomore students that are coming up in high school?
I think that is a great question. One of the things that I will add is that several of the applications have added a space for which you can talk about the impact of the pandemic on you personally. Maybe online learning wasn't the right match for you and it had a little bit of an impact on your grades and you want to talk about. As I alluded to earlier, maybe the pandemic allowed you to explore different personal growth opportunities, and we hope you'll share. Maybe the pandemic was really taxing. You had to not only go to school, but you had to help your family as they were all working online and watch younger siblings. I think in the next 4 years, and hopefully this pandemic will right itself sooner rather than later, you should be willing to talk to us about it, especially if it's important to you. We recognize that there are going to be impacts. We recognize that there is going to be change. But there are also so many different schools and so many different policies across the country that it would be helpful for us to hear from you about the things that have been different in this journey. I mentioned the second one has been finances. We recognize that there will be some financial limitations, so please talk to your colleges. Number 3, you now have the ability to go on a college search without ever leaving your home. And for a lot of our students and families, sometimes that's the hardest thing. I don't feel like I can visit all the schools I want to. Now you can, whether it's at midnight by watching videos on their website, or whether it's engaging through programs like this, or maybe it's through engagement of virtual programs that they're holding institutionally. If you've always wondered what it's like to go to school in Wisconsin, jump on a program in January and have somebody show you what it looks like outside the window. What is it like to go to school in Northern California? Or maybe to go to school in Portland? Ask questions, visit campuses virtually, talk to students, ask to engage with faculty members. We're all turning this on a dime, and the world is now your oyster. I hope you'll expand your opportunities to meet different types of schools and in different locations. You might really be surprised at what is out there that you would have never visited if the world was normal. But most importantly, communicate with us. Whether it's good news, whether it's bad news, whether it's news of growth through this pandemic, I really think the biggest thing you need to be aware of in the college search process for the next few years is communicate with your officers. Let us be advocates for you. Let us hopefully help guide you and determine schools that are the right fit.
Awesome. We have one more question. It's tied to the pandemic. I understand that there are 44 schools and 44 financial aid departments, but can you talk a little bit about merit and being tied to SAT or ACT scores and how that might change given the difficulties getting testing locations?
Yeah, I think this year for the class of 2021 in particular, lots of institutions are not only evaluating using test scores in the admission process. And as we alluded to earlier, hundreds of schools across the country have eliminated that in the admission process. I think you want to double check and make sure that it's being removed from the scholarship process as well. I know at my institution, we have done that. Chris, what are you all doing as far as testing in the scholarship process?
So we've always been test optional, and so our merit kind of configuration can account for whether or not scores exist. So for us, we use high school GPA, academic unit count, class rank if class rank exists, and scores if scores exist. And if something is missing, they don't have a class rank, they don't have SAT or ACT scores, it just puts higher weight on GPA and on the academic unit count. So it kind of accounts for those objects not being there, but it doesn't negatively impact the scholarship amount.
Right. I know that there is a lot of panic and stress and concern that there are still some scholarship programs that are requiring it. There are some outside scholarship programs that are requiring it. I hope you'll reach out to those schools and question it and let them know that this is really a challenge. Schools are continuing to evaluate the process, but I know that lots of institutions have made this pledge, especially for the class of 2021, that testing should not be something you risk your health and your life for. And I think what we'll hopefully find, and I'm going to knock on some wood on my desk here, is that moving forward, we'll evaluate what role testing should play at all in our processes. And you may find that institutions who said this was a 1-year policy or maybe a 2-year policy are really going to roll this out, that testing is not needed on a regular basis to determine your ability to be successful and earn a scholarship at an institution. So this is a growth opportunity for you as students. It's a growth opportunity for us as colleges. And we're hoping that we'll all land on the positive end at the end of this journey. I know our time is coming to an end, and so I want to say thank you. Please know that we will be repeating these sessions in September and October as well. And so if there are other schools that you learn about that you want to engage with more, we would welcome you to join us. And we thank you for spending a little bit of your Sunday with Chris and I, and learning more about the liberal arts and colleges that change lives. Good luck to you, and thank you for joining us today.
And I just wanted to say thank you so much to Christine and Chris for sharing their Sunday afternoon with us and sharing all this valuable knowledge with the audience. I will be sure that they get the questions that were submitted through here as well. As you exit the Zoom webinar, you will be taken to a quick survey, only 4 questions. So we would love to hear your feedback regarding this particular session. And as I said from the beginning, there's more sessions with CTCL through Tuesday evening, and recordings will be available on our website shortly. So I hope everyone has a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. And thank you once again to our presenters. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Good luck.